Well, the verdict for Sean Diddy Combs is finally in. Thank God that's all over. And the judge giving Combs 4 years and 2 months on charges related to sex workers and violence. For more on this and some other legal topics, we are joined by attorney and criminal law specialist Dwayne Cates and former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Lindsay Richards and our special guest Nicole Brunecki and Angie Wong. All right, Dwayne, I want to go over to you. Combs managed to escape racketeering and the sex trafficking charges, which would have carried potentially a life sentence. Talk to us about how you think this all shook out over the last number of weeks here.
Well, Sean, he definitely dodged a bullet, okay? So what he got convicted of was much less than what he was charged with. And there were a lot of people predicting what the sentence would be, and a lot of people were right around 50 months, which is what he got. He also can get an early release to a halfway house, and sometimes that's as much as like 6 months off the sentence. So plus he's already got a year in, so it won't be long and he'll be back on the streets.
Yeah, Lindsay, I want to talk to you about how you think he played this, because I was at the court yesterday. He submitted that 11-minute video, which was quite compelling. If you didn't know the story behind this, you would be very upset that this man was being put behind bars for, you know, all the things he did for the community and taking his daughters to basketball, etc., etc. But then he got on the stand to plead his case at the end and just spoke about himself, not the victims, not really, you know, he apologized to the victims and then went on to talk about how much this has affected him and his life, and he's a changed man, which I don't really think did him any favors. So when you think about how he went about this case, did he do the right thing? Did he save himself or make everything worse for himself?
Well, in my opinion, and having been a former prosecutor and now a criminal defense attorney, I actually found the video a bit ridiculous. All I thought of when I saw that video was he was a father and this person while he was committing these crimes.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It is.
All that tells me is that he was able to keep up this facade of being really two completely different people. And so I honestly do not feel that he got enough time. But clearly his pleas to the court worked and were effective. He got a pretty low sentence considering all of his prior bad acts were being considered by the judge, including that horrific Cassie Ventura video. So it did work, but I never heard him take the accountability that I would have been looking for in this particular case.
That is exactly the point. There was no accountability whatsoever. It was, woe is me.
Absolutely. Nicole, I want to get your thoughts on this, and because I thought that those are some fantastic points about the dichotomy of this guy who really lived two different lives, and he actually showed that to the court. Your thoughts?
Yes, the video was ridiculous. I do agree. But the problem with this case is that the prosecution put on a very grand case that involved RICO sex trafficking charges. All these charges are very difficult and complex to prove, and they were designed to fail because simply what he did not meet the definition of those crimes. So it's a failure for the prosecution that they spent so much of taxpayers' money and then only managed to not get him acquitted on the lowest charges. So.
But did they overshoot intentionally just so that they could get something?
Well, they could have just built a better case for those lowest charges that were the strongest charges, and just maybe if that panned out for them, they would have gotten a better, sentencing result here. But they played for those big charges, and they were simply just not well put together.
Okay.
Yeah, Angie, what about you? You know, no one can get that video, that CCTV of him assaulting Cassie Ventura out of their mind. I think that video really sealed his fate here. And I think that, to be honest, when he says he's sorry, he's just sorry he got caught.
That's right. And that video is now part of his legacy. I don't think you could ever see Sean Diddy Combs the same way after that video and how he treats women. And he's going to live with that for the rest of his life. 4 years, way too short. I feel terrible for the victims. This has been a really dragged out public court case, and for him to only receive just 4 years, I think there's going to be perhaps superseding charges coming, and maybe other court cases, certainly civil cases coming down the pipeline. This is not over for him, and he might have thought he had a win yesterday, but I think there's going to be a lot more, unfortunately, for all of us to have to watch it.
I totally agree.
Dwayne, I want to pivot to the New York Attorney General Letitia James and 11 other states' attorneys general suing the Trump administration for withholding FEMA grants from states that are not complying with Trump's crackdown on illegal immigrants. Your thoughts on this case from these? I think they're all Democrat AGs, and sort of pitting. And this fight that we seem to be having, where the Democrats want to shield these illegal immigrants at all costs.
So you're telling me Letitia James is suing Donald Trump? What a shock! She ran on suing Donald Trump at every turn. Okay, and it's just we're back to lawfare, Trump derangement syndrome. They're doing everything anything Donald Trump. I mean, it's like the Tylenol stuff. They say Tylenol is dangerous, so people are shoving Tylenol down their face. Anything that Donald Trump is for. Letitia James is automatically against, and these lawsuits are gonna come out in favor of Donald Trump because he has the ability to run the government. That's his job. He's the executive, and any executive in a company has the ability to allocate capital where they think it's going to do the best good.
Lindsay, let's quickly move on to Lisa Cook, because the Supreme Court has blocked Trump's emergency bid to fire her from the Fed. Does this just push back, holding her accountable for the mortgage fraud allegations here?
Well, there haven't been any criminal charges filed in any way against her for the mortgage fraud. I think, though, that it is important to remember that the separation of our Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Board is very important in this instance. We need to make sure that we're keeping economic decisions separate from political pressure. And, regardless of anyone's political leanings, that is a necessary separation. And so, I think for now, we need to let this play out in the court system and see what the Supreme Court ultimately ends up deciding.
Indeed, we will see how that goes from there. Dwayne Cates, Lindsay Richards, thank you so much for your insight today. And Nicole and Angie, don't go anywhere, because you're going to be back with us after this break. You at home, don't go anywhere else as well.
Coming up next, Pete Hegseth calling all senior military leadership